the next speaker. Uh, we have Aniket, Udayrao, Bhavthankar ji. Aniket ji is going to talk about Upeksha. This is again, I am all admiration for the selection of this topic because this is such a micro level, minute level topic within the statecraft governance and leadership studies. Not only that it is minute and micro level, it is an upekshita topic. The topic itself is upeksha, and the topic itself is an upekshita topic. Usually, people have not paid attention towards this topic. He is a doctoral researcher at the University of Duisburg, Essen. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it correctly. In Germany, Upeksha, Equanimity in the Indic Statecraft and Contemporary Diplomacy is the title of the topic. Uh, I am very, very glad that such youngsters are emerging and they are taking up such wonderful micro level, minute level topics within statecraft. Aniket Udayrao Bhavthankar ji is a doctoral candidate in international relations and submitted the doctoral dissertation at the University of Duisburg, Essen, Germany. Aniket's research focuses on India's democratic conceptions in foreign policy, strategic culture, and civilizational worldviews. He has previously worked as an assistant professor at Symbiosis School of International Studies and a senior research associate at the Society for Policy Studies, New Delhi. He holds a master's in international relations from the South Asian University in New Delhi and a bachelor's degree in computer applications from Tilak. Oh, computer applications also from Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, Pune. His work has been published in leading strategic forums, including Eurasia Review and Indian Defense Review. Oh, wow. Aniket is a lover of Marathi literature who particularly enjoys P.L. Deshpande's wry, satirical, humorous observations on the human conditions. Wonderful, Sri Aniketji. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nagraj ji and Srinivas ji, for organizing this and inviting me for the talk. Yeah, so the reason towards the end of my profile, I wrote a PL Deshpande. One of the reasons was in his books, although it was very humorous and other things, he had a description of Sri Krishna. And he wrote that Sri Krishna earlier, he was an Indian diplomat. And my previous speaker, Dr. Chibbar, has also talked about Udyog Parva and Sri Krishna's role as a diplomat. And that led me to inquisitive about the Mahabharata and Indian strategic thought. And it was maybe 15 to 20 years ago, not today. So that was my thinking and my interest in Indian thought. So I will come to my topic and this particular slide later on immediately, but I will just give you the brief understanding how I'm going ahead with my talk. Yeah. So the flow of presentation will go like this. So I will first explain where this Upeksha finds in the Indian Indic thought. The next slide will explain where it is in the ancient text and why Upeksha, why I chose this particular. And I'm trying to associate it with Operation Sindoor and later on what is happening with Donald Trump, US President Donald Trump's trade related references. Again, I would like to make a disclaimer that I'm not going to be a causal understanding of things. Rather, I'm taking a prototype, and I don't know whether Dr. Chiba has made it easier or difficult for me when she spoke about asanas and yanas during the sixfold foreign policy, but that is going to help me a lot. And whether India is Upeksha is an India specific policy. She talked about the non-Western thought, and I am also taking forward this, that particular thing. And last will be the questions. So I will go back to my first slide. If you see this particular slide, this is a calm water, and on water it is not possible for stones to stand still. But this particular picture shows that, and this reflect the calmness, inner calmness, what we have in Indian thought. We focus on our internal things, and that reflects here, and that is the steadiness, calmness which we need to have during the decision making. And that's what Upeksha also somewhere tells you. I will come to that. The lotus itself suggests the endurance, because it is floating on this particular water. This shows the I think previously also in the morning I was listening to Jain diplomacy and other. There was a reference to restraint, and that restraint is visible here, and that is a integral part of Upeksha also. So what I am suggesting that Indian strategic thought is not just a particular stream. It combines many aspects, and it can be interpreted in different ways. The chessboard here suggests that it can be used for diplomacy. The war and etc things are towards the end, but before that comes diplomacy also. Obviously Upeksha is part of war also, and I will explain it in the next slides. So, where is the reference to Upeksha found in Indic thought? If the first picture is about the Bhishma lying on a death bed, and in that Shanti Parva, he explained Rajanaya. The word, even I use that particular word when I was a columnist with one of the newspapers. I used to use a Rajanaya instead of yeah, any other word. So that particular word is very integral to Indian thought. And in this Shanti Parva, in Vivek Debroy's volume 8 and Adhyay 59, Bhishma talks about the kinship, how it emerged, and its consequent policies. In the Western thought, also, I always remember that in Western thought there is a social contract theory. But even much before that, we have this particular kinship, how kinship emerged theory is there, and it talks about the lawlessness and etc. So in this particular adhyaya, Bhishma argued about the five techniques, and the four techniques we are very well versed with. And as Dr. Nagaraj ji rightly said, that Upeksha is Upekshit. So Samadama Danda Bhed, we all know about these particular four upayas, but the fifth one was Upeksha, and it was discussed in Mahabharata. Obviously, it was not deliberated in detail in Mahabharata, but it was just touched upon. And when they talked about Upeksha, it is word Upeksha suggests neglect or diplomatic indifference in the Mahabharata. Later on, Kautilya also talked about the same analogy. Obviously, he has studied Mahabharata, and he provided his understanding about it, and he associated Upeksha with Udasina attitude. Earlier in the morning, Nagaraj was talking about the alliances, and in that alliances, he talked about Mitra and other things. So one of the Mitra is Udasin. So in the today's context, we can say it is neutral. So Switzerland in the Second World War and during that period is considered as a Udasin, and in that context, he associated Upeksha. However, it was in the Nitisara which in detail discussed about Upeksha. So in his chapter 11 or Sarga 11, as he considered, and Prakaran 16, there are two aspects. One is Upeksha Yana, and the other one is Upeksha Asana. So Upeksha Yana is in the context of military expeditions, and it is discussed in the chapter 11, Prakaran 16, and Shlok number 10, where he called it about diplomatic indifference, Upeksha Yana. It is in the military context. I will associate it with Operation Sindur later on, but that is Upeksha Yana. In the 22nd shloka, the show of indifference to a more powerful rival is called as Upeksha Asana. Asana is again foreign policy major, as we know that it is a part of Shadguna, and it is also explained in Nitisara. So I will explain those aspects. Uh, so first, this one is from a Karnataka temple. This is a fight between Lord Krishna and Indra. So on the right side of photo, there's a Indra who was on Airavat, and on the left side is the Sri Krishna. He's on Garud. So there is a fight between Indra and Krishna. The reason is very simple. During the Samudra Manthan, there was one tree which came out, which was a Parijatak. And Narada Muni, once he visited Sri Krishna and he offered Parijataka flowers to Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna gave it to Rukmini, his wife. Obviously, Narad, we all know about his what kind of approach he had towards life. So he went to Satyabhama and he told that about this particular flower, and Satyabhama requested Sri Krishna that I need this particular tree and the flowers. Sri Krishna went to Swargaloka, Indraloka, and he uprooted that particular tree. Now, Indra was of the view that this particular tree came from a Samudra Manthan, and this is a tree of Devas, this is for Swargaloka. And that led to a fight between Sri Krishna and Indra. Sri Krishna is, we all know, that avatar of Vishnu, and that's why he was more powerful during the fight with Indra. And in this case, Indra was inferior power. At that time, Aditi appeared. Aditi is a mother of Krishna, and she pacified in Indra, and she told Indra that you are also a brother. He is a Upendra. Sri Krishna is a Upendra, and you don't have to fight. So there was some kind of compromise happened, and Indra neglected arrival of Krishna in Swargaloka, because we all know that Sri Krishna at that time was in his human form. So how can human goes to Swarga? And that kind of approach was of Indra, but he neglected it. And this particular example is given by in Nitisara when they are explaining Upeksha Asanam. And second one is of Upeksha Yana. This is about Arjuna. They talked about the third Pandav Dhananjay when he had all the capabilities and he fought with the Nivanta Kavachas, the Danavas, during that period, and he had all the abilities to fight with him and defeat totally to them. But what he did, he neglected them and he went ahead and destroyed the golden city of Danavas. Although he had all the might with him, he neglected Nivant Kavachas, went ahead. And this neglecting of Nivant Kavachas was for the larger purpose, long term goals rather than the short term thinking. And that was the reason this is associated with Upeksha Yana. And in Buddhist thought also, Upeksha is associated with equanimity, that is keeping calm, balanced attitude. And we all know that in Indian foreign policy, since independence, we are following one policy of freedom of choice. Even yesterday, when Indian foreign minister was speaking in United Nations General Assembly, uh, the focus of his talk, among others, was on the freedom of choice, and that independence of choice is very important, and that comes from this equanimity or upeksha, where you need to be a calm, balanced, take a independent course. So I would like to discuss that upeksha in today's context. As Dr. Nagaraj has rightly said that this it remained a neglected topic in a foreign policy analysis. But earlier, M.V. Krishna Rao, he in his book Studies in Kautilya touched upon this aspect of Upeksha from the Kautilya perspective and Kamandaka's perspective, with examples from Mahabharata again. Because whatever examples I gave you just now, whether it was of Krishna or Pandavas, it is from the Mahabharat perspective. So he elaborated it in detail. But interestingly, he associated it with a modern world or a contemporary world. When India got independence in 1947, before that there was a national movement going on, and one of the tallest leader was Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi used satyagraha, which was another technique in the context of national movement. And M.V. Krishna Rao associated upeksha with Mahatma Gandhi's technique of satyagraha, because in this endurance is tested. It is a long term. patience, weight, all the features of Upeksha was integral to that. And he suggested that somewhere due to this particular approach, Britishers had to alter their course. They have to thought about how to behave differently, because they never encountered this kind of technique in their rule. So Mahatma Gandhi used that particular technique and used a high moral ground, and that is very important in foreign policy. If we take from Mahabharata to even today, this high moral ground is very important. So if we see the in Mahabharata, Pandavas had not fought immediately after Lakshagraha and other episodes. There was a cumulative approach in Pandavas. So when the fight happened in the end, so they said that okay, what you did during the Draupadi Vastraharan period, what you did in Lakshagraha, so these are the things which gives you high moral ground and you can leverage it later on. So even now, when yesterday, again I would like to refer to S. Jaishankar's speech, he talked about UN reforms, but he has not directly first said that India, obviously India needs Security Council seat, but he referred to African states also, and he used the words like equity and others. So these refer that okay, we have a high moral ground. It's not just we are looking only from the real politic perspective or crude realist perspective, and that is part of Upeksha. Later on, IDSA, which is the Defense Ministry think tank of India, they published a monograph where they compared Kautilya and Nitisara in Upeksha. In that particular book, Colonel P.K. Gautam, he somewhere referred that Colin Gray, who is one of the most prominent scholar of strategic culture, so he referred to Mahatma Gandhi's approach of non-violence and a high moral ground. Obviously, they have not talked about the word upeksha because they were not aware about these things. But he referred to Mahatma Gandhi's approach of high moral ground and other things. So Colonel P.K. Gautam suggested that this is somewhere linked with Upeksha. And later on, Joseph Nye, he came with the notion of soft power. And in soft power, it is not expected to use a force. Rather, it is the attraction. And it is a long term process. It's not a very short term process. So it takes your endurance, patience, etc. And that's how he associated Upeksha with soft power. But apart from this diplomatic neglect or diplomatic indifference, it has a aspect of time and place, that is kala and dasha also, which is in spatial and temporal sense, and patience. So these aspects are also very relevant and appropriate. And I would like to explore those two aspects because other aspects are already covered. So I would like to explore the kala and dasha aspect and patience with respect to the contemporary policies of Indian state. And this is with regard to a specific period, which we all are aware, after 22nd April dastardly attack on Indian tourist and one Nepalese national who were killed. So after that, there were, from 6th May onwards, India launched Operation Sindoor, and what happened after that with respect to the US. I'm going to associate this Upeksha with this and how Indian decision maker behaved during this period. Again, I am using the prototype of Upeksha and not the causal analysis. So what happened? Suddenly, we were all were looking at the things from 6th May to 10th May, and suddenly in the evening, we got this particular post from Donald Trump that after a long night of talks mediated by US, I am pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed to full and immediate ceasefire in capital. And congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The tone was very condescending. That I am very smarter, and the use of words like mediated, because since 1998 onwards, whenever there is a conflict between India and Pakistan, obviously US was there, but it was not mediation. It was just a facilitation. However, the word mediated, uh, is very problematic for Indians. And what happened after that? So immediately after that, there was a press conference by Ministry of External Affairs. Interestingly, the words used was not ceasefire. Words used were we are going to pause or ceasing of the hostilities. If you recollect it with the Arjuna's approach towards Nivantakas, or in Nitisara, they said that asan somewhere suggests a stop. The word used asan is a stop or halt, and that's the particular word we used in Operation Sindur. We are claiming that Operation Sindur is not ended; it is just paused, and that again helped me to reconnect it with Upeksha, because it's just a pause and not the end of or ceasefire in that context. So it was followed with this particular meeting, and Indian Prime Minister was also invited. Our diplomats saw what is happening here, and India has said that no, we are not going there. But again, we were not making a direct attack on them. We were waiting for our time. And it is very important in this context, because Donald Trump was not habitual with this kind of approach. He was expecting some kind of response from the Indian side, and that response was not coming, and that led to this particular tariffs. First 25% tariffs, and then the Russian oil bogey came into the picture. And somewhere he was suggesting that Donald Trump was suggesting that you come my way or highway. Now it was very easy for any country to respond to it, but India has not responded immediately, and it took a lot of time from Indian side to have a phone call with Donald Trump, and that time in between many things happened. Even in the parliament, Indian Prime Minister spoke about Operation Sindoor, and he said that there was no foreign interference in it. But again, he has not named any particular leader. So it was a kind of waiting period, waiting for a right time, right place, and etc. things. After that, this particular picture came. uh, Peter Navarro, he was making all sort of claims, and this particular picture was posted by him, and that was many interpreted it as a way to create some kind of division within the Indian society, a divide and rule policy. Again, Indians have not responded the way US was expecting India to respond. Then came this particular aspect from Secretary Besant. He said that India is profiting from Russian oil. So all sort of it went on incremental, because Peter Navarro is not a ministerial rank. Then it went to ministerial rank, and everyone was talking about India to respond from the US side. And last, it came with the corns, that India need to purchase our corn, and now nothing was happening, and it was showing the patience, endurance of Indian diplomats, Indian policymakers, and that's why I somewhere associate it with the Upeksha. And it also has a aspect of independence of foreign policy, because we wanted to have our own decision making. Others should not dictate us, and that's why patience and time somewhere suggested me that Upeksha is integral to Indian approach, current Indian approach. So how India responded? So instead of responding to US, Modi went to China, and US perceived it, or many Western publications also perceived it as a Indian response to Trump. However, it was a snowball effect of Kazan meeting into the 2024 October. So what started almost a year ago, so it culminated in this meeting, because if India has to open its options, opening of options, it was necessary for him to go to China. And obviously, the meeting was more symbolic than the substance, because the substantial meeting was a day before he went to Japan. That was more substantial meeting which was neglected, like Upeksha. But he went to China, and that led to barrage of social media posts from the US side. And somewhere they learned that what India is doing is a deliberate attempt. They are mum. They have kept their mum because of deliberation. It's not of any weakness or something. It is a deliberate choice of waiting for the game, and that led to some kind of positive signal from the US side. Another important during this particular period was a meeting of these three leaders: Putin, Xi Jinping, and Narendra Modi, and that ignited reactions from the Western world. When I'm suggesting Western world, I would like to emphasize it is from the US side rather than the collective West, which is the Western Europe and others. But it was the US which was very agitated with this kind of images. And they then phone call happened, etc. So what Indian stance indicates, so when I am looking at it from the Upeksha perspective, Indian stance indicates the policy of caution and patience, and they manifested the way of choosing time and place. So India has not responded immediately. If you see the timeline, it was only US president is writing something, and response from Indian side is the Indian spokesperson. So from the diplomatic perspective and a protocol perspective, it was expected that Prime Minister of India will respond. But it was only during the weekly press conferences, and it is not that special press conference happened because US president has posted something. And this suggests that the approach was calculated, deliberate one. It was a very calculative move that we should not respond to. And even if it is a response, it was during the press conference only, which is a weekly press conference. So anyway, this particular press conference happens on the Wednesday. So on that particular time only, India responded, and India responded only to Navarro and others, and not to the President Trump. And that frustrated them a lot. But it reflects the policy of caution, patience, and obviously back channel diplomacy was going on. I am not saying that back channel diplomacy was not there, but India uh, chose its time, and it responded from China. It waited for long, and it responded from China. So place was also different, but it sent right message across the board. And they understood Indian approach is not of weakness, and it is very difficult to bend or fold India. So in the context of Upeksha, if we see in context of Upeksha, I somewhere referred that inferior power or weaker power in Krishna and Indra was weaker power. There is another reference in the Nitisara. That particular reference is about Rukmi. Obviously, there are different variations about Rukmi's approach to what happened during the Rukmini Swayamvar period. He wanted to have marriage between Shishupala and his sister Rukmini, but Krishna came, and some accounts suggest that there was a fight between Krishna and Rukmi, and he was he was a prisoner of Krishna, but on the request of Rukmini, he was released. But some accounts says that he neglected Krishna, and he left his kingdom and established another kingdom at some other place. And in Nitisar, this particular episode was referred as a Upeksha Asanam, where there was a neglect of Krishna, and he went ahead. So obviously, our scriptures have a different interpretation. But in this context, again, Rukmi was a weaker player, and that's in the current context, I'm not lowering the dignity of India, but realistically what I'm suggesting that India is relatively weaker to the United States from all the metrics, and that's why the Indian approach was not wasting energy on responding, because if India responds, then it would have been in the some different trajectory. But right now choice is with us, because even day before yesterday, when Indian trade delegation was in US, the statement which came after that was very cold, and it again suggests that things have not resolved. And some media reports suggest that India have suggested that if you are not allowing us to purchase oil from Russia, then allow us from Iran and Venezuela. And that somewhere suggests that India is keeping its option open, keeping the independence of its foreign policy, and instead of choosing some specific plan of action, specificity on those United States, because India has very limited options and leverage in comparison to China. Here I would like to bring China, because there is a same kind of approach US tried with China, but China has more leverage than India. But India has one leverage which is of a market. China is not a export led. China is export led economy, so they don't have that market. And India has a huge market, and India is trying to leverage that particular leverage which India has, and it is responding with specificity, with some waiting game, patience, etc. All are involved, which I somewhere feel that connected with the Upeksha. And all this waiting game resulted into trade dialogue. However, again, India is very vigilant. It is not swayed away with the sweet talk like, okay, phone call has come, US president has relented, and etc. But it remained vigilant, and it's somewhere focusing on its own strengths. So it is very important, because when you are waiting for your own time, you need to build your strength also. So if you see the definition of Swadeshi, it has changed slightly. It is not the traditional definition of Swadeshi. It suggests that whichever money is there, I don't care about it, but it should be produced within India. It should be within the India. Those things needs to be produced, and this is focusing on our own strengths and building our own strengths, and buying time, which is very important. Because even after that, we have seen the H1B visa fiasco. India has not responded again. Then there were certain exemptions happened. So obviously waiting game is making US more frustrating, and this is somewhere part of Upeksha. There are multiple, what I say, the diplomatic options used by US after H1B visa, the defense pact, somewhere the oil politics, etc., is playing into it. Pakistan is also involved in it, and all this US is doing is provoking India, that India should respond to us. But as Upeksha suggested, that it is providing India with the independent decision making, and India is doing the same thing. Instead of any knee jerk reaction, waiting with a patience and assessing its multiple options. So in the morning only, I read that India has purchased soybean oil from Argentina. Now this is very interesting, because all this is happening from the US perspective. Donald Trump's base is in the Midwest, where there is a lot of farmers who have a soybean in their fields, and India is waiting till the midterms, and it will help India to bend Donald Trump, because he's playing for his domestic audience, and India is assessing those options. India, if it waits till this season, and towards till Christmas only, like in next 2 3 months, it will be very difficult for Donald Trump to respond to his domestic audience. And that's what India is doing. Even though options are limited, India is using this time, and instead of knee jerk reaction, India suggesting that, okay, patience, I have a lot of patience, And importantly, when we had very comparatively less economic weight, we have received this kind of onslaughts many times. And so now India is much more stronger compared to what we were in 1990s. So India is using it. So India is looking at all the moves from United States, because if you see, earlier it was Indo Pacific. Now United States started to frame it as Asia Pacific. So, and they are trying to move towards South America, their forces and everything. So it's not pivot to Indo Pacific, it's pivot to South America and other parts of the world. So this is a another way to deliberate provocation of India. And the reason somewhere I sense that US do not want any another competitor. Reason can be traced back to US history also. In 1990s, when China came into the picture, US facilitated rise of China. So whether their entry into WTO or most favored nation and many other aspects were there. If you go into the 1990s, end of Francis Fukuyama wrote End of History, and that was suggesting somewhere that liberal democracy has won, etc., etc. And they said that we need to send this ideology to China, so Chinese political culture will change. But instead of that, what happened 2.5 decade away, China has emerged as a stronger player, as a challenger to US. And US somewhere sees that with India working on its own strength. So, in 1 or 2 decades later, India may emerge as another competitor to US, because if the companies are moving from China to India, it is not helping US directly, because its Trump's base is not going to help with that. So, in long run, India may emerge as a challenger to the United States of America, and US don't want that kind of challenger. And that's why somewhere they are using this kind of neo-colonialist tendencies. The more again their trade secretary or commerce secretary said that we need to fix some countries like Brazil and India. Now this language of patronizing is very difficult to work with India, because we Indians have a strong sense of history, and what happened in our history stays with us, and that US and other countries are not able to understand. And they are considering that okay, US India will respond to us, but my assessment is India is using this tactic of upeksha somewhere and waiting for its own game. So is this India specific strategy? As Dr. Chibar rightly suggested about the non-Western thought, this particular Indian ancient literature, Indic thought, is not specific to India. It has a global connotations, and that's what we need to understand. So, if you see this particular picture, this is with regard to China. Uh, those who remember about China,
Nikitji, are you coming close to conclusion?
uh, there are 2 or 3 slides, so I will come to conclusion in 5 to 10 5 minutes.
Yeah,
Do I
five
have
minutes. 5 minutes. Yes.
5 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is in 1990s India, sorry, China was considered as a panda, but now it is a dragon. So there was a thought in Chinese thinking that we need to hide our strength and bide for a time. So it's same waiting game is there. Soft power I had already explained. It is a long term endurance, and other aspects are integral to it. So in that context, it is upeksha. So Europeans also have their own strategy called strategic autonomy. Interestingly, India currently uses the word strategic autonomy in their foreign policy, but it was in 1997. There was a agreement between Britain and France, and they used the word strategically autonomous. And those particular words were inherited by Vajpayee administration at that time. K.R. Narayanan, who gave a speech during that time, he was a president at that time. He used this particular word, strategic autonomy, but it has a European connotation also. So uh, it suggests that independence is very important, this way or that way or this way. So that independence is very important in Upeksha also. And in that sense, this Upeksha is a contribution to the global statecraft. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Aniket ji. It was micro level focus topic on a very minute level aspect of diplomacy. And the talk was completely filled with contemporary examples also throughout. And I think audience would have got very well connected to the topic because of the contemporary examples. They would have definitely learned a lot, enjoyed. They would have definitely enjoyed your talk a lot because of the contemporary examples that you were giving. And these concepts like Upeksha have to be spread to particularly Gen Z. What happens is the younger generation do not understand such minute level aspects of strategy. These are aspects of strategy basically. And in Mahabharata, Sahadeva, the youngest of the Pandavas, is shown the way usually youngsters respond. He does not understand these strategic aspects and yells at his elder brothers and others for being very soft and all that. So Vyasa was very clever. He was showing that this is how youngsters react. They don't understand the strategic aspects. Why? Because of strategy, Yudhishthira and the elder brothers Bhima and Arjuna were behaving the way they were behaving. So the youngsters have to be educated, first of all, to learn such strategic aspects. Mm,
Yeah,
okay, Aniket ji, please go
I,
ahead.
I just I just wanted to add one more thing with respect to Operation Sindoor. Why it was stopped again? I associated it with Upeksha and the long-term understanding because you just talked about the Mahabharata thing. Vidura Niti also talked about the same thing, the long-term perspective of it. And in the Indian context, in today, India's main concern is to become a developed nation by 2047, and that was somewhere in the minds of Indian decision makers, probably, to not to escalate the war. That's how I looked at it from the strategic perspective.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those in the opposition who surprisingly supported India going for a full war were waiting for that full war to derail the development and take up that topic of derailment of development for their benefit. That is the reason they were completely disappointed with the pausing of the
Yeah,
battle. So they thought from their strategy point of view, this was highly disappointing for them that they did not get the opportunity of using the derailment of development through an escalation.
yes,
Uh, so that is the reason they are now trying to show the pausing of the war as timidity on the part of the government or something like that. So they now, as a strategy, would like to do that. Yeah. So now let us check if there are questions. You will also be able to see the questions if you want to answer. Any Buddhist classical text where the Upeksha could be raised? Rajiv Ranjanji is asking you.
uh, to be honest, I haven't studied a Buddhist text, so I'm not in a position to comment definitively whether there is any reference directly into the Buddhist texts.
I don't think that there is any Buddhist origin of the concept of Upeksha as a strategy. Concept of Upeksha as an inward sadhana with regard to life is different from concept of Upeksha as a an international relations strategy,
Yeah. So,
diplomatic strategy. The Buddhist classical texts do not uh, focus on such diplomatic strategy aspects. They definitely focus on upeksha as an inward sadhana aspect, as a mindfulness aspect. That is there in Vedanta also. Upeksha in Vedanta is different from upeksha in strategic studies.
and Raju Ranjanji said that this term is present in Buddhist. Yes, the term is present, that's for sure. But as Nagaraj C rightly said, it was not from the diplomatic perspective.
It is an inward sadhana perspective. The term upeksha in Buddhist teachings and the term upeksha is there in Vedanta also. In both places, the usage is in the sense of inward sadhana, mindfulness. Okay, and Chaudhary Gautam Prabhakar Bhaiji is asking for sharing the documents used by the speakers. It is left to the speakers whether they want to share those documents with the audience or not. If the speakers are willing, they may be able to share them with you. You may directly contact them. So now, thank you very much again for this advanced talk, Aniket ji.
Thank you
Uh,
very much for the opportunity.